Hi, this is Vu Dang. This is my final presentation on the topic of emotionally sensitive intelligent tutoring systems for CS6460. So to provide a project overview, this project is a research-based project on the topic of emotionally sensitive intelligent tutoring systems and explores the effectiveness and need for an EITS to teach programming to college students. And it determines the linkage between effectiveness between emotions and learning. And also, it determines the feasibility of emotional aware features in EITS and assesses the current market EITS tools, applications, and research within industry. And then it'll go through general recommendations and guidelines on what makes up an effective EITS. So this presentation overview will consist of four main parts. I'll go through some surveys that were conducted in the class. There's two surveys, one generally on emotions and EITS, and then another on concept mapping and adaptive features. And then I'll also go through a scan of the current EITS applications and research studies available on the market. And I'll delve into some of the research takeaways on EITS and its ability to adapt to student emotions to optimize the learning interaction. And finally, I'll conclude with a recommendation of the capabilities that a core EITS design system should have. Some of the research takeaways. So I looked into approximately 100 resources that were reviewed and analyzed. Most of the research concluded that emotions provide a positive benefit and led to improved learning. EITS were able to successfully induce positive emotions for learners to improve the learning experience. And the main factors from the research that were helpful was the users seeked were the factors of immediate feedback, empathy, and encouragement were helpful features within EITS to engage learners. There were also some physiological applications and research studies that were done that were very promising and had a lot of potential using physiological devices such as ECG, EKG, facial recognition, deep learning AI algorithms. So it has a lot of exciting potential, but there's still some future work that's left to do there. So some of the main takeaways, again, EITS. It's, I think, one of the challenges in the best EITS systems was finding the right balance between keeping students from negative emotions of boredom, frustration, and providing motivation. One of the conversational systems, which spins off a lot of different hybrids of the system, is called AutoTutor. It uses it's a conversational agent, and it uses natural language processing and affect technology. And this actually rivaled that of expert tutors, and it actually surpassed the performance of novice tutors. Teaching methods that incorporated concept maps were more effective than traditional methods. Some of the problem focus, which is using examples and definitions to change the situation that caused a negative emotion, and emotion-focused approaches, which change learners' ways of perceiving the situation, were most effective in impacting learning. The agent's enthusiasm, expressiveness, and some of the pedagogical actions were important factors in learning satisfaction from EITS. There's a positive correlation between emotions of surprise and frustration in the metacognitive and cognitive processes. And surprise and frustration actually accurately predicted cognitive and metacognitive processes, which is very useful to incorporate into EITS systems. And then computer vision and deep learning technology had the ability to detect and respond with approximately 87% accuracy. And this used a combination of computer vision and deep learning through a webcam to detect face patterns and the emotional state of students. Some of the survey insights on the general EITS feedback was a lot of respondents. Most students would use the EITS for programming help frequently and often. 76% of respondents agree that it's very important for EITS to express enthusiasm to better help students learn. 88% of respondents state that they were not able to think effectively if they're experiencing negative emotions such as anger, anxiety, boredom, depression. And students seek EITS help mainly for technical help as well as metacognitive help, which is the process of thinking about their thinking process, such as during times when they experience negative emotional experiences such as frustration, anger, boredom, with frustration being the highest emotion followed by boredom. Frustration was rated at 76% and boredom at 52%. 76% of the respondents agree that emotions play a significant part in their learning. Some of the survey insights into concept mapping adaptive features. 64% of respondents agree that having system prompts that provide immediate feedback after a negative emotion, through animated agents or conversational agents to regulate their learning experience would be helpful. 60% of respondents agree having a feature for EITS to detect emotional state. So when users are experiencing negative emotions such as frustration or boredom, to kind of detract their attention for a break elsewhere, redirect their attention so they can come back to the task feeling refreshed. Some additional insights into the concept mapping were these are some of the features that were requested, such as changing behavior to active learning goals, self-directed prompts, recommended learning strategies, strategic features such as monitor progress towards goal completion, and then general features such as UX experience and having frequent exams. So the market tools and takeaways, so in total there were 35 EITS applications and research studies that were conducted. So the capabilities ranged anywhere from computer vision, deep learning, using ECG, EKG, physiological indicators and facial recognition, to animated conversational agents, games, emotion and problem-focused solutions, self-reports, speech synthesis, among many others. The outcome was generally positive for most of the applications and research that were reviewed, and it resulted in positive results for the correlation between the factor of emotions and learning within an EITS to learn programming. The systems were able to successfully find the right balance to regulate the range of positive and negative emotions in their interaction in order to induce the emotions that are most suitable to learning and to minimize the negative emotions that detract focus and attention from the learning experience. EITS were able to induce the optimal feelings in order for students to succeed in learning within the platform. There were several studies that produced negative or mixed results or inconclusive results, which support the other alternate hypothesis that emotions have no or negative effect on learning. but those were in the minority. Some of the recommendations. There's a theory that was done by researchers called control value theory, which basically places the importance of emotions, play, and learning, which centers around the theory of the user having control, like the perceived ability to effectively manage their achievement activities and their outcomes versus the value placed the value in that outcome, which is the perceived importance of that outcome. And so some general factors to consider in an EITS would be the cost versus value, the cost of implementing the EITS versus the benefit and the value that of learning and positive emotional experiences that the learners, the users would get out of that experience. Again, from the survey and the research, more assessments, specifically tests that we're preparing students to for the appropriate skill level to place in the tutoring session, and also having more frequent tests and assessments to regulate and monitor their progress towards the learning of the subject. EITS system prompts, again, this is having messages delivered by the emotional agent to provide emotional experience during learning sessions, especially during the negative learning emotional experiences, such as offering support, encouragement. Again, there has to be a fine balance between having too much and too little, and the approximate time of the messages in order to regulate the learning experience. Self-regulated learning advises students on strategic learning behaviors, which consist of actively understanding a subject such as math. This consists of setting sub-goals, using learning strategies, monitoring and regulating aspects of thinking, behavior, emotions, and motivation, and changing one's behavior to achieve the goals. Basically, it's the active participation of students to engage in monitoring their learning with an EITS. And the system can induce a lot of these strategic learning behaviors at the appropriate time. Another factor to consider is the frequency of the innervation, whether it's event-based, based on a trigger of an emotional reaction from the user, or time-based, where it's predefined set messages and directed prompts that can be applied to the general population. Another factor to consider is user adaptive versus non-user adaptive. User adaptive is specific, like custom to the user, to the learner, versus non-user adaptive, which is more general, geared towards the general population. The goal basically is to navigate, monitor, and regulate the learner's emotional state in order for them to best learn the subject matter. And researchers have a model of do no harm, which is basically self-explanatory, and the ultimate goal is not to harm the learner in any way that implements the best EITS detection and response system that sparks the most positive emotion for learners to put them in the best position to learn. Again, thank you for that is my presentation, and thank you for listening, and I appreciate your feedback and input on my topic of EITS and the factor of emotions that play into learning. Thank you.